I'm alone. So like it's very like hard to go up there. The only thing that you can't do is give up when it comes to failure. Take the L's as they come along and learn from the L's. At the end of the day, it does work out. You only got one life to live.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Highest Version Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Philivong, and on this podcast, we talk about falling in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Today's guest is Mickey Kwong, Georgia born and raised. He is a world traveler to experience new cultures and lifelong experiences. When he's not traveling, he is protecting our browser history, if you know what I'm saying. Just kidding. He's currently working at a cybersecurity company on the sales team and is here to let us know about his mindset. So let's welcome Mickey. What's up? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Randy. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it so much. I know it's like a cold, early morning, not really like sort of like middle of like the morning kind of thing. So happy that you came on and taking the drive.
Of course.
I know we know each other on a very surface level too. So this is going to be very interesting for both of us. So that way you get to know a little bit of our stories and our own journeys.
Yeah, I think it'll be great. Beautiful day here in Boston.
Finally,
so it's
right?
Perfect day to drive out here, make the trip.
I know. Because freaking New England, it's been like what, 50, 40 degrees like in the past like few weeks.
Yeah, with like a 20-degree wind chill.
I mean, the fact that you are Georgia born and raised, coming to the cold, how was that?
I mean, it's always been a change,
Yeah.
That's what everyone always talks about or brings up when I tell them I'm from Georgia.
Yeah.
I think just subtle differences between obviously the weather and like having to change my car tires, maybe consider winter tires.
Yeah.
And then putting on an extra layer of clothes. So little things like that are different. But I think every state has really got its own culture, its own ways.
For sure. All right, before we get into any of the questions, I just want to feature the Funko Pop of the episode. And the Funko Pop I chose for you is Iron Man. And the reason why I chose Iron Man is because you told me that you were working at a cybersecurity company. So to me, I was like, okay, techie, and Iron Man's obviously very techie, entrepreneurship. But also I know you're passionate about creating lifelong experiences, seeing the world, and also, putting yourself in a very comfortable financial situation. And as we all know, Tony Stark is a millionaire himself. So I feel like you two had this resonation of being really smart people, wanting to live really memorable experiences and being in the tech industry. So just kind of curious, how do you, any reflections just based off my connection between Iron Man and yourself?
I think it's all valid points, and I'd say you did your research well.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, Mickey. So let's get into the questions. The first thing I really want to talk to you about is traveling. When I was subtly stalking your Instagram, I know that you were going to many places throughout the world, and I just want to know where your passion for traveling came from, because for some people, traveling and going on an airplane could be kind of scary.
Sure. So I think the passion for just traveling honestly came from college course I actually took back at the University of Georgia. I studied business, just average business and administration. But one of the required courses out there was culture and diversity. So basically what we did is we studied different case studies, learned about successes in both business, but as well as sports, and how you bring different perspectives and different just cultural backgrounds together, and how you overcome differences. After reading some of these case studies and just talking about it throughout the class, instead of shunning away people's differences, it's really important to actually understand where people are coming from, especially if they tend to disagree with you. It's easy to agree with other people, but when you disagree, you really have to empathize with the other person and hear the other side. Maybe they come in and attack the problem from a different angle, and it's actually maybe a better solution. So with that being said, tying it back into travel, just being appreciative of different cultures kind of opens my lens and perspective into how I see things when I come back here to the United States.
Yeah, that's actually a really cool class to have. And did you guys have a planned trip? Were you guys able to travel as a college class, or it didn't get to that extent?
No, it didn't get to that extent, but I mean, we did have real world conversations. So for example, you even call out things like racism in the workplace, maybe one thing that comes up in the workplace a lot if you work in the office is like if someone microwaves something that smells, you know?
Yep.
Like being able to understand like people's different cultures and like why they're even doing that in the first place, because it's what's normal to them obviously isn't normal to you.
Yeah.
And just being able to respect that and accept the differences is something that a lot of people can't do.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially in a world where everyone has a different perspective. I feel like other people have a hard time just trying to understand the other side, right?
Yeah.
But this class kind of opened up your view and like really pushed you into like this kind of path of, again, really memorable experiences. So like, what was the first place that you traveled to? Like maybe like time period wise, like after that class and having that open up your mind.
I mean, I think the most recent one is like when I went to Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
And so part of the reason I went to Hong Kong is because I am Chinese. I'm Cantonese and my family speaks Cantonese. Me being born and raised in Georgia and the way I grew up, I never ended up learning Chinese. I understand some aspects of it, but the reason why I wanted to go to Hong Kong was really just to get closer with my roots and just get more in touch. My family's not from Hong Kong, but I know they speak Cantonese out there. Mm-hmm. And so I had the opportunity to use what rudimentary Cantonese skills I had and really put it to the test and really put myself out there and embrace failure.
Yeah.
And I definitely did that. And I embarrassed myself multiple times out there.
Fair enough.
But I wanted to be able to, for me, like to be able to get more in touch with like my Chinese culture and roots, and be able to embrace that. And that was something I really did just for me.
That's awesome.
So it's probably the most meaningful one.
Yeah.
Not the most recent one I did after that course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to share that one.
I mean, what was an experience, or give us a story about like you trying to speak Canto and then all of a sudden like, you know, it just completely was a failure.
Yeah, sure. I think a good anecdote for this was like I actually got sick while I was in Hong Kong before Chinese New Year. Mm-hmm. I went to Shake Shack, which everyone is familiar with here. I don't know what I got sick from here. I think I had drank some of the tap water and maybe I wasn't used to it. Mm-hmm. My immune system, my stomach is sadly kind of weak. But either way, I ended up getting sick and I ended up throwing up that whole night. The next morning, I needed just like just some plain rice.
Yeah.
I was looking for, you know, like the congee or like the rice porridge.
Yes.
Basically, for the viewers out there, it's basically just like rice and water. Super plain and easy on the stomach. Mm-hmm. So I was going around to like multiple restaurants trying to like ask them if they had this, and multiple times, and I'm alone. So like it's very like hard to go up there when you can't speak the language, like and then having to go up and ask for a specific menu item.
Yeah.
A lot of these restaurants actually didn't have it, surprisingly. I think it was maybe at the time of hour that I was asking.
Okay.
But whatever it was, I probably asked like 5 to 10 different restaurants and I was never able to get it. So I ended up just resorting to regular white rice.
Oh, okay. So were they like, how long, like what were they were they just like staring at you? Like what is going on?
Yeah, well, they're basically staring at me because the accent I had and the way I was pronouncing the words wasn't, they weren't able to understand it.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I had to pull out the translator and then like while I got 5 people behind me.
Yeah. Probably like, hurry up.
Exactly.
Oh man. Well, awesome for you to put yourself in a very failure, like literally like you knew that you were going to fail, but like, you know, you're going to figure it out.
No,
right?
Exactly.
So then did your Canto get better as you were there, or did it just like stay at a very stagnant?
I'd say I got more confident with being able to just fail. I'd say it kind of stayed somewhat stagnant. Did I learn maybe like a extra word or two from the translator? Yeah, but I think just being able to feel comfortable and being able to communicate with other people out there in a different country, especially when it's a language that I feel like I should know, is something that like I had to overcome.
Your initial like, I guess, knowledge of Canto, like that came from your parents, I assume?
Yeah, it came from parents, family, just like basic things like going on throughout the house.
Gotcha. Did your parents ever think about, I don't know, was there any Chinese school in Georgia or?
Yeah, so always, now, are you Chinese? I forget.
No, I'm Lao.
Okay, got it. So all the Chinese schools, like Cantonese is definitely the minority of the minority,
Yes,
you
you're
know?
right. Yeah.
So it's like all the Chinese schools that I did end up going to taught Mandarin,
Mm-hmm.
and then everything that was spoken back at home is Cantonese. And then when you go to school,
Mm-hmm.
people like are low key like dissing you for like always speaking a different language, you know?
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
English was always the main language, anyways, at school.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha. I mean, how not frustrating, well, confusing was for you to be like, oh, like you're trying to learn your roots, but like there's only Mandarin that's like being even, I think even Duolingo, right?
yeah.
It's only like mostly Mandarin or
No,
like,
even Duolingo's only
yeah,
Mandarin.
that's crazy. But like, I don't know. I just feel like Canto speaking, like that should be in, I mean, it's a certain dialect and I feel like it's not like it's much of a minority, right? I feel like it
Yeah.
should be mostly offered, you know?
Yeah.
But I guess that mindset of you putting yourself in a very failure position, even going to China, like Hong Kong by yourself. I mean, that's taking great leaps. I mean, where does your mindset come to have that kind of confidence?
Yeah, I think the mindset really just came from, I'm not sure where it came from, honestly.
You're just like, F it, I'm
Yeah,
doing
just
it.
like yeah, I feel like it's always been something that's like deep down, like embedded. Like I've always wanted to do it and just like get out there. And I've always wanted to go out and eventually learn how to speak Cantonese.
Yeah.
But the thing is also it's tough because on a day-to-day basis, it's just not practical with what I'm doing with work. And the only time it's really practical is when I see my family twice a year.
Yeah. Oh, twice a year.
Well,
Oh, wow.
really on the holidays. Sometimes I see
right.
them more, obviously, but it's
Right,
like, I
right.
mean, maybe they're just like, we're just like grabbing dinner or something for an hour.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is tough. I'm also trying to speak Lao too, or trying to improve my Lao.
Yeah.
And the only practice that feel like I've been able to have is to call my mom like on a weekly basis,
Yeah.
so that she'll be like, okay, like I'm only talking Lao, so
Yeah.
you have to figure it out. And I'm like, okay. So then I tried to basically speaking broken Lao to her, and then like after our conversation or like maybe a few minutes, she'd be like, okay, like these are the certain words, like this is how you say this is how you say that. It's hard because I feel like I just have like American accent to it, so it's like, oh, like my parents laugh, but they only laugh because it's just like, oh, like it's like we're glad that you're trying to learn.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because like they've told me ever since I was little, like, hey, you should learn Lao so that you can speak to your grandma, you can all that stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't put that much effort into it, but now I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to immerse myself into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we have similar experiences. Like,
Yeah.
like when you were growing up, like what was it like for you? Like when speaking Lao?
So my parents would speak it and I would respond back in English.
Yeah.
Because I can understand exactly what they're saying.
Yeah.
But like when it tries to like basically take what they say to me and for me to put that out to them, it's like a gear that's not working.
No, I completely agree. I think we're on similar pages.
Yeah.
Like it's much easier to just understand it because I feel like some of the specific words are just so reinforced that like you start to understand it, but you can never like regurgitate like verbally, like back to them.
Yeah, no, I feel that. My mom is I know my mom's like just laughing now because she's like, I told you. And I'm like, I know. But like, I feel like I've gotten better. Like, being able to talk to like my grandma a little bit more because my grandma asks the same questions.
Yeah.
So because they ask the same questions, I know what response to
Yeah.
say, but still need a little bit of work. So are you doing anything now to at least put more effort into increasing your Canto, getting more comfortable in it? I know you said there's not a lot of opportunity on a day-to-day basis, but like, are you doing any workbooks or Duolingo or anything like that?
Yeah. And truthfully, I could be doing better. I think most of the time, like I think just practicing with family when I see them.
Yeah.
Maybe the 5 to 10 times. Then the 2 I called out during the holidays.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmas. Other than that, I could probably be putting in more work. But like I said, it's kind of on the back burner for me.
Oh, yeah.
Like I know it can benefit me in a lot of ways, but just with some of the goals I have and like when it comes to work and just personal goals I have, doesn't really progress those forward.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been that big of a focus.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I feel you on that. There's so many aspects of life and so many goals that I have. I mean, I literally have a whole notebook full of goals, but like the amount of areas is like over, I think, 10. And it's hard to like figure out like which one to be prioritizing and all that stuff. Obviously that's a conversation we have with ourselves to kind of figure out where like what should be prioritized and what should be like, oh, I'll do this later in the year. So not as in like, oh, I'm not putting it away, but I'll get to it later.
Yeah, you can only focus on so many goals, you know?
I know. Sometimes I wish I was a robot so I could just like, pick up all those things. But I know that's, that's also not, of course, realistic, but also not a good thing in some sort of ways.
Sure.
So I want to move on to something that you mentioned, discussions through offline, through
Sure.
email, that being a top performer, I think you mentioned that you take a lot of pride in that, and being a high performer isn't easy. Like that mindset to have is a double-edged sword, where you're doing great, you have a lot of success, but that could take also like a mental toll on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what I want to dive into is, where did your mindset of being a top performer come from? I think I'm gonna start off with that question first. Where did your mindset of becoming a top performer come from?
Sure. I think I'd say it's innate. I don't know truly where specifically it came from. I think it's fun to be at the top and just win. Of course, it's not going to come right away, and just being able to stay humble and take the L's as they come along and learn from the L's, and then continually iterate your craft, and then being able eventually, like, you'll make it to the top as long as you're open to change, open to feedback, and then just continuing to do the right actions. I think eventually you'll make it there.
So what's your best methods to handle quote unquote L's? Like because a lot of people when they're faced with failure, they could just, be like, all right, I'm not going to do this. Like they just completely quit. Like how do you handle failures in certain places and certain points in your life?
I think just being able to embrace it. I think it's like flipping the script on what failure is exactly. Like whether if it's failure, like, okay, do you want to evaluate and actually give up on this? And that's something that's definitely valid that you want to think about. But if it's something that, if you still want to achieve the goal that you set out to achieve, then you need to take this specific failure or setback as a learning lesson. Take that lesson with a grain of salt and then learn from it, and then put that into your craft and continue to iterate that craft, and then continue to push forward.
Yeah. If you give advice to someone that like is struggling with failure, or they're just getting this impediment of failures, like what is the best advice you could give to them in terms of like a mindset change? Yeah.
Well, I would say if you have goals and you are overcoming or embracing failure and experiencing failure, the only thing that you can't do is give up when it comes to failure. You just have to continue to keep your head high, continue to push forward, and then learn from the failures. Because I know the failures can seem like major setbacks and you want to give up.
Yeah.
Everyone feels the same exact way. But the difference between people who actually make it and the people who don't make it are the ones that don't give up.
Yeah. Do you have, like, does a story come to mind in your head of like where you experienced a failure and you were able to bounce back? Like any type of story that you have there?
I'm in a fairly new role with the cybersecurity company, and just coming from my previous role, being at like the top of the totem pole, going into this new company, you start right at the bottom. You have no clout. You have people don't know who you are. Like they don't give a shit about who you were before, because it's all like ego,
Yeah.
So you have to go in there, recreate your brand. And then you have like different organizations have absolutely different processes that go on throughout the organization. And it takes time to figure out like specific ways to get in and be successful, because it's not a straight line. So, I mean, this is like a current failure and setback that I'm experiencing now. And this is something that I know and I acknowledge that takes time. Yeah. Just coming from where I was at a previous company and coming into here and just starting from a clean slate. And there's a lot of different failures that I've experienced from just being able to, like, maybe the deals that have fallen through that I had expected to come through. And then it makes like a reputation and a brand that you have internally. It just reflects on yourself,
Right.
And you feel like a failure and you feel like you want to give up. And I've felt all those feelings, but as time goes on, you continue to push forward. You learn from those lessons, work with whoever you need to work with. In my case, it's like managers, and maybe a couple other colleagues. being able to learn from those lessons and then continue to push forward, you start to realize like, oh, like things are actually clicking. And that's kind of where I'm at in this stage. Like things are clicking right now, but then how can we get these clicks to start like moving the gears, you know?
Yeah.
And ultimately get back to where I was back at the top of the totem pole.
Yeah. I mean, how long ago was you joining this new company?
It was last May.
Last May. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
so coming
okay.
up on a year.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, even in that year, like you still need to build that own personal reputation in the
For
company.
sure.
And that's definitely tough. And being in sales isn't easy either.
No,
I
it's
mean,
not easy at all.
I mean, where did your, I guess, desire to go into sales come from? Or
Yeah, I think it came at a young age. So like just work experience. When I first turned 16, I wanted to find a job. So I worked at Marco's Pizza.
Okay.
It's not really here in the Massachusetts area, but if you go like down south, I think maybe Midwest, they've got more Marco's Pizzas. It's like a big chain. As soon as I hit 18, I wanted to find a sales job, just make a little bit more money. I was just trying to hustle while I was in school, you know?
Yeah.
I've always had like this hustle mentality for whatever reason, even in elementary school. Do you remember Five Gum?
Yes.
So when that first came out, I was like hustling Five Gum
Damn.
in elementary and middle school.
Nice.
So like I would sell it for like a pack. I would sell a pack for $5, buy a 3-pack for I think like 10 or something like that.
Okay.
So eventually I make like $5 after I sold 3 packs.
Nice.
But anyway, so my job, once I hit 18, I wanted to go work at a sales job. I tried to go work at Verizon because I had Verizon service and I knew that they like sold phones there. So if Verizon, for whatever reason, didn't want to interview me, their mistake.
Obviously.
I ended up going to work at Sprint. And then from there, I got the confidence that I knew I would at least be somewhat successful because at Sprint, I was working with people who are like 10 years older than me. And I was blowing them out of the water when it comes to like sales numbers and just metrics. And all it really came down to is just effort.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, they just wanted to cruise through life. And that's totally fine. It just depends what you want to do, you know?
Yeah.
And from there, that was able to instill me that confidence that I've always knew that I would at least be somewhat successful.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome because no one really picks sales a lot, right? And even sales has a bad connotation to it. And like, I guess, how do you, from a customer mindset, how do you break that, like, that negative connotation of it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you just embrace it. Like, hey, man, I'm just the measly sales guy.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, at the end of the day, like, you're really not. Like, if you think about it, like, a lot of these sales cycles, especially like maybe post college, or like depends what you do, like especially like within the tech industry or at least cybersecurity sales, like it's not necessarily like, yo, I'm gonna sell you this thing and I'm gonna dip.
Yeah.
Like it's never that easy. Like these companies, they're paying like $100,000 plus like on these yearly contracts. Like they're not just gonna pull the trigger on like something that's simple.
Right.
It also has to be organizational wide implementation. So it's not something like where it's like you just buy it and then you hand them a ticket.
Yeah.
You have to like, the implementation sometimes takes months. So it's like a real iterative process and meticulous evaluation process that these like security executives or chief information security officers have to go through. So it's not necessarily like just like the measly sales thing, but then you do come across like different people who just don't like salespeople, and that's totally fine. So to answer your question, I think just embracing it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, I'm just a sales guy.
Yeah.
Give me some love.
No, for sure. Yeah. No, I mean, you develop like a lot of like communication skills and like obviously like even selling yourself, right? I think with sales, the reputation is that you have to work a lot of hours. Is that true? Like,
I think no. I think you just work regular business hours because people don't want to be like hit up or like they don't want to take meetings like outside of business hours, you know?
Yeah.
So just being able to work regular business hours, and then I think being efficient with your time during those business hours. Like if I were to work outside of business hours, it would just be setting myself up for success.
Yeah.
For like when business hours do come.
Okay. And how do you set up yourself for success?
I think it's a lot of research and organization. So being able to understand, for example, like Rapid7 is the company I work at. It's HQ'd here in Boston. We also sponsor the Bruins. But I think just a lot of research, understanding like where executives come from. The cybersecurity industry is very tight knit.
Yeah.
So people like go to the same like conferences, for example. They go part of the same networking groups. Once you make it to that executive level, you start to understand the landscape a little bit more. And just being able to understand like, oh, if this person likes Rapid7 and they've had a good experience, maybe they switched companies or got promoted, maybe they'll evaluate Rapid7 again. So being able to drill down and do that type of research, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to do that work. So
Right.
that's kind of where you like uncover different opportunities to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah. One of my past guys said the war is won in prep. And
Yeah.
like just no, you're completely right. Like if you are if you're fully prepared for whatever task or whatever it is that you need to do,
Sure.
that you'll know and understand like all these ins and outs that you need to do. You speak on a good point of networking, because networking, I feel like COVID just like really did something to us. So like from a social skills standpoint, I feel like society made, I guess, people less social or quote unquote don't know how to act like in social settings. And networking in itself can be kind of hard. Any advice that you can give on just honestly just like any networking tips, like how to network, how to sell yourself, how to really just like put yourself out there?
Yeah. I think just being willing to ask people for help. You had made a point earlier about going to the gym. I actually met some great friends from the gym. Just from being able to ask people if they could spot me on the bench, because I usually go to work out alone and I like to bench press. I got a slight shoulder injury, but haven't been benching recently, but like 2 years ago, last year, I'd just approach random people, no matter age, gender, whatever it was. Like I just need a spotter and need some kind of help.
Yeah.
I think just being able to ask people for help, but also when you're having conversations with someone and you do want to talk to them, just being able to latch on to something that they have said, like how you latched on to my networking piece. Just being able to latch on a piece of information that they had really continues the conversation. Like Randy latched onto my networking piece and drilled down a little bit further, and here I am rambling.
Yeah. Hey man, I mean that is a good point. I know sometimes it's hard for someone to like get to that latching point. You know what I mean? Like they could keep going and going, and then there's a point where that person's like, all right, like I gotta go. Like, you kind of also have to feel that too,
I do agree with feeling it, but I think where it also comes from, being able to latch onto it, is active listening.
Yes.
I think listening is super, super important, because I feel like what happens in conversations is, okay, what am I going to say next? It's not, if you want like a natural flow of a conversation, don't necessarily think about it that way. Think about like, okay, what is this person actually saying to me? Because whatever they're talking about, either like that's what they're genuinely thinking about. So you might be able to latch on to something that they're talking about. So being able to listen and then understand what they're saying, and then you should be able to latch on something from there.
Yeah. I think also another tip that I've heard that I somewhat believe in but don't believe in is that you're like, oh, find a common point.
Yeah.
But like we could be totally two opposite people.
Yeah.
You're not going to find a common point.
Completely agree.
You just got to find like something they said that you curiously find interesting.
Yeah.
And like just keep going with that.
Yeah.
That's how I like to say, like when I'm having episodes and talking to my guests, like, there's this zone where like all of a sudden it's just like I don't know if it's the Matrix or whatever, but it's like and then like I'm just so curious about like whatever the topic is, and I just keep diving and diving and diving, because it genuinely is curious to me, right? So I guess that's like another tip for y'all in networking, is just like, figure out that interesting point and then kind of keep going from there. We've touched up on a lot of like kind of like business skills, honestly social skills. I kind of want to retract, because we talked about failures before.
Sure.
And I know you mentioned to me offline that you were laid off from your previous company.
Yep.
And getting laid off is not easy. It's kind of like, especially like you said, being a top performer, top of your team, to be like, well, why me out of, not to say you were saying other people should have been, but like,
Sure.
Can you talk about your feelings and growth pains of, being laid off despite feeling like you were like, feeling like you were the number one on the team?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Randy, I wasn't feeling it. I was number
You
one.
were
on the team.
okay. Fair enough.
Respectfully.
Guys, this is fact. This is factual. Facts.
No, so leading up to it, it was like, I forget what year it was, but I think it was in September, whatever year it was, I had gotten promoted to just like a more senior role. And then I took a trip to New York City with my cousin the first week of December. And I remember coming back from our trip on Sunday, waking up Monday morning and checking my phone. And I saw an email that came out from the CEO's executive assistant that they're sending out Zoom invites about people getting laid off. And I remember waking up and I saw this like at 7 a.m. A little too early for me to get up out of bed and get ready for work. So I saw the email and I was like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Like I put my phone down and I went right back to sleep. I get back up like at 8:30 and I check my phone and I have the Zoom invite. And I was like, damn. And before all this, before I even got the Zoom invite, they were already laying people off, and they were laying off like some good people too. It's like very arbitrary about who they were choosing when it came to laying some of these people off. I actually never expected to be one of those people just because of performance wise. They always talk about like when you're a top performer, like
you're fine.
Just something you shouldn't have to worry about. Well, it turns out like that's just not true, and it's a learning lesson I'm going to take with me for the rest of my career. Like you truly, really just are a number out here. But anyways, I hop on, and the VP who I thought I had a decent relationship, he actually just spews out this HR script. And then towards the end, like he was super cold, like just like it seemed like our relationship was just out the window. So I felt like it was obviously some type of betrayal. I wasn't too happy. At the same time, like I knew it was always gonna work out anyways. Like I've like experienced different failures in the past, so it's just like what's another failure in the bucket, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm always gonna pick myself up and move forward.
But even still, like, I mean, it's just like for me, like if I was number one on my team and then they lay me off, like it's just like I think I could resonate with the fact that like okay, so I am just a number to you versus like the actual contributions you brought. But I mean, how do you like bounce back from that? I mean, I know some of my friends that have been laid off and like they're like, what do I do?
Sure, yeah. So I mean, that's when I took some time to travel.
Nice.
I went to Hong Kong actually.
Okay, nice.
That's that kind of led up to that Hong Kong trip. But then also I went to I knocked some off my bucket list. I went to Niagara Falls.
Nice.
I drove up to Toronto afterwards. So spent about a week out in Toronto, got an Airbnb. So I took some time to travel and just take a break and just enjoy life. And a lot of things that I wanted to cross off that I had the opportunity to do so, and just no pressure. And then I was able to come back and really take some time to evaluate where I wanted to go, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it was like a blessing in disguise at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, how was that process like finding your current job now? Like, was it just hundreds of applications, hundreds of interviews? Like, how was that like?
Yeah, if I were gonna give like interview and resume advice, I think being able to cater your resume to the specific job. I know like people preach that all the time, but like ATS systems, they pick up on keywords like straight out of the job application. And then DMing people on recruiters on LinkedIn. Okay. So being able to do that outreach and tap into like a sales mindset, and just being able to like introduce yourself on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I just submitted this application. But also being able to pick up the phone and call these recruiters. That's actually how I got my current job. Okay. My application was sitting in there for like before I went to Hong Kong. For like 2 weeks. I came back from Hong Kong. Now it's been a month and it's still sitting there in progress. So I actually called the Rapid7 recruiter, and it was actually a manager I had connected with, and she's like, oh, you know, we actually are still hiring for this role. I'm not the correct person, but like, let me get you in touch with the recruiter. From there, I got the interview like about 2 hours later.
Nice.
So that's kind of how I got my current job. And Rapid 7 was a company I've always wanted to actually work
Gotcha.
at.
Yeah, I mean, all these actions that you're telling me shows to me how much you take life by the horns and
Yeah.
really like try to create the life as to what you want, like build the life that you
Yeah.
want, right? That's what we're all trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Like I try to put things in my own hands and I try to take control of what I can. But how do you like for those things that you can't control, right? How's that relationship? How do you deal with that? Because sometimes for me, like if something happens that's out of my control, it like really hurts. There's like some pain in there because I'm like, oh, like I could have prevented it or I should have been. When in reality, like you really can't, you know?
Yeah. I think it all comes down to like risk mitigation actually. So not necessarily being able to 100% control all the factors, but being able to optimize the end result is something that you do have control over, and being able to mitigate risk and minimize risk.
Yeah.
So like, for example, like if we're going back to like work, for example, being able to prepare the most as possible, like making sure that you're prepared and you have what you want to present available, and being able to understand all the avenues that this specific client can take the conversation down and having answers ready for that.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't come with the best news that you actually have, but then like if you optimize for that scenario, you can at least, it's out of your control though, but like you can, you're not as frustrated,
Yeah.
you know?
I have viewers or I know people that identify themselves as like introverts, right?
Sure.
So and we talk to me, like I take you as someone that can really like, build those meaningful relationships and have great conversations. For someone that maybe is an introvert and is trying to put themselves out there a little bit more, I guess any tips on that, because I feel like it'd be very valuable to know, just maybe some things you can do to really just talk if you want to be extrovert, more put yourself out there, to just tips to like help become that.
Yeah, I think tips is putting yourself out there, being vulnerable. I think vulnerability builds some of the most meaningful relationships. Like a lot of conversations people have are like surface level, but if you peel the onion back another layer, there's another layer to that. And just being your authentic self. Everyone is super unique in who they are, and just being vulnerable, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable at a human level. People are going to be able to empathize with that and be able to respect that, and then be able to be vulnerable back. And that ultimately builds some of the most meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
At least I found.
No, I completely agree. Being vulnerable has opened up a lot of more in-depth conversations. I love like deep conversations just because of you get to know the person more, you get to know their story. For me, I feel like the topic of struggle has always been a good topic in terms of like, okay, like this is what the person went through. How did they bounce back from it?
Yeah.
For me, like, I mean, this whole brand, this whole podcast, like this is a product of struggle and people asking, like, being vulnerable enough to open up my story to other people. And I've been able to connect with others that like, hey, like I felt the same way, or, thank you for talking about this because I recently went through this kind of like situation. So I think all of us need to be more vulnerable. And I think that kind of opens up the whole like trusting people or being able to open up to other people piece too,
I think with that piece though, being able to trust people, I think if you're truly vulnerable and being your authentic self, like don't give a about what people have to say, like you're just being you at the end of the day. And like if people are truly going to judge and that's going to impact like how you're reflected at work, then maybe you're in the wrong place. But then also like just own it. Like for example, like a lot of people at work know a lot more than myself about sports. I'm super transparent with them. Like I don't really use the word transparent, but like I mean I'm super honest with them and like hey, like I don't know much about sports. Honestly, like most of my time, like outside of work, I just like go to the gym and play video games. And like hang out with friends, maybe play pickleball, go for walks. And they totally respect that. And I think like I built a different relationship being vulnerable with them because they know that like maybe we don't have that rapport over sports, but like there's other aspects that I bring to the table that they can truly appreciate. And it's allowed them to like know who I am, and then allows them to be more vulnerable and share who they are.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a very good point, because I feel like in the business world, we're both in the business world. I'm also in the business world. I feel like there's a line on vulnerability though.
For sure.
Because you don't want to obviously go to your manager and be like, yo, like this, like, oh, this happened on a date last night or whatever, you know. That like, you got to make sure you choose your certain topics, right?
Yeah.
But a big thing for me, because I'm so passionate about mental health, like I've always expressed in a professional manner to my manager, like, hey, like mentally, like I'm not feeling okay because of X, Y, and Z. Like, just want to let you know some precautions based on the day. And I think because I've been able to do that, I think my team has been able to open up to me more, because they're like, oh, like this guy is very transparent. Like he's very communicative.
Yeah.
And that way, like, I can be the same way too, right? Say it's more of like, hey, like it's okay to talk about, you know, what struggles or issues or not act like nothing's going wrong in your life, right?
Yeah.
But then there's you have to know the line of like, okay, like it could be a little bit too much for the other person, right?
For sure.
Yeah. I guess in your eyes, like how is that? Where do you see that line of vulnerability?
Yeah, no, it's a great point, and I think there's oversharing does exist. I think the line of vulnerability is, of course, like, honestly, I hate to almost even use this word in this scenario, but be strategic. Like, hey, if we're gonna talk about like the workplace, if we're talking about like personal things, like, I mean, if you have a trusted circle, family members, good friends, like, I truly think that you should be able to share whatever you want, you know.
Thanks.
But I think if it's at work, like, be strategic about what you want to share. Like, do it in a way that reflects you in a good way, you know. Like, I mean, there are some negative connotations with like maybe playing video games, you know. But it's genuinely something that I do.
Yeah.
And I think it brings a lot of skills that people don't actually appreciate out of video games, that I can bring to the workplace, like competitiveness, communication, teamwork, you know, like they don't talk about that stuff that much, you know.
That's true. Yeah, because all we hear is all we hear is like about guys in gaming is that like, oh, like it's such a toxic trait.
Yeah.
But in reality, like there is a lot of things that come out of video games, you know.
100%. I completely agree.
So Mickey, what's your goals for 2025?
Goals for 2025, I think, let me see. So, of course, like traveling internationally twice. So we're making that happen as long as I come back safely.
Yes.
I'm going to the Philippines and I'm going to France, both happening this summer. Other goals, I'd like to hit 225 on bench press.
Let's go.
I've done it before, but as soon as I hit it, like I hit this peak and then like it goes right back down. Dang. I think I just get complacent. That's something that I try to avoid a lot.
Yeah.
But I think just my shoulder's not completely back yet, but it's going to take a little bit of time to heal. I think the way I'm going to get this 225 is just do a little bit more push-ups, and then just lock in on the bench.
Yeah.
And then ask people for help. That's one thing that's actually made me stronger. Just getting good spotters at the gym, even though they're randoms.
Yeah.
Just being able to, the little extra rep is huge.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I wish I could do the same, but at Planet Fitness they have the Smith machine. So
I know what you're talking about.
I was like, yeah, can you spot me? They're like, it does it itself.
Yeah,
So there's nothing I could do about it.
The thing with the Smith machines, in my opinion, is they're not super ergonomic on like the bench press.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's like
I feel it's bad for your shoulder.
Yeah. No, I've definitely had some shoulder problems with benching or bench pressing, so I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I think incline is good on the Smith though. Yes. Yeah, you should hit that for sure, which I'm sure you are.
Yeah, my coach is he only does Smith. He only tells me to do incline on the Smith machine.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah, but nothing like a regular bench. Everything bench press is like all dumbbell stuff.
Who's your coach?
Stephen Chen. He is a past guest, episode unaired, but like he's here. He was born, raised here. I think in Quincy, and he's preparing for a bodybuilding competition.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah, so he's just like, he's a great guy to work with.
Yeah.
I could connect you if you have any like fitness questions if you wanted to.
Sure. Yeah.
Any other 2025 goals?
I think outside of that, traveling, and then I think just making as much money as possible. I
Nice.
think like maybe shooting for like the 200 mark in 2025. So hopefully we can make it happen, but I don't know. We'll see, man.
I mean, with the way you're performing and the way that, I mean, I've even just got a chance to know how your habits and your mannerisms are. I hope that for you too. And it seems like a very easy possibility. So,
Well, not easy,
yeah,
but
well, not
it's
easy.
a possibility
Yes,
for sure.
yes, for sure, for sure. I want to ask, how is your mental health? How is your mental health nowadays?
Yeah, I think my mental health, I'd say, is good. I mean, are there improvements? I think it goes through a roller coaster here and there. You know, I think one point that you made previously is around how you can control the uncontrollables. I think that's something that I let impact my mental health more than I should. But it's the name of the game. It is what it is, you know?
Yeah. I also think it's also just, those things that happen to you that are out of your control. I think, like you pointed out, can be blessings as well.
Yeah.
To me, I believe in a higher power and the universe, and like what you put out is what you get back. So if you're showing all that hard work and showing what you really want, I think you will get rewarded eventually. It's just we live in a world that's very immediate success, I guess you
Yeah.
can say, versus like back in, I think, in our parents' days, it's like
Yeah.
it's a gradual success.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just on the topic of trying to control the things that you can't control. I mean, I know if you already brought up some points, but I think the mentality is another mentality that I think has helped me also is just to let go and let yourself ride with the ripples and directions of life, because like you're doing the best that you can. You're doing all that is in your control, like you said, like preparing for the next day or preparing for the next sales call or numbers or anything like that. And that's really all you can do at that point. After that, it's like, well, like you can't I mean, you can indirect or directly make the other person, right, agree to that sales agreement, but also at the end of the day, you don't know like how they're going to react, right? It's a react and action kind of connotation.
No,
right?
people aren't gonna agree if they don't want to agree, and that's just
Yeah.
something you can't control.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. You just on to the next, you know?
For sure. So before we get into like song association or anything like that, is there any other topic that that we haven't talked about, or anything that you want to get to know about me? Like, this is an open floor now to like any topic that we want to dive into.
Sure. How's Randy's mental health nowadays?
Good question. My mental health nowadays is, I think I'm happy with life, at where it's not at now. However, I'm not gonna say however. The struggle points of my mental health have been rumination, slash letting things go, and then two, the other one is just building highest version and being content creator. The hardest thing for me has been finding that consistency routine to put out things on a consistent basis, but also not letting numbers be a representation of who I am. So to touch on that first point with rumination, like there's a lot of things that happen in my past that has been very hard for me to like let go. My brain is so like, if you make a mistake, like it's you have to make sure 110% that thing is never gonna happen again. And granted, when you think about it, it's like, yeah, of course, like you shouldn't have you don't want your mistakes to happen again. However, like because of that, I cannot not forget that thing. And because of those mistakes have such a hard negative feeling to them, it's really hard to navigate during it'll come up like randomly during the day of like, oh, like, do you remember when you like broke this person's heart? Or do you remember when you messed up the internet at your parents' house at the age of like 8 or something like that?
Yeah.
Like those things like sit with me, right? They're in a cabinet that like constantly like flies out. And it's just like, so there's this thing I said where it's like, at this point in my life, like I understand that I am not a bad person and the things that, whatever mistakes or things that I've done. But that's not to say like the narrative that I have for myself isn't still leaning towards that negative person. You know what I mean? And when I was going to therapy and depression at a time, like that really hurt a lot because I would think, for example, like, we both know, right? And she's a great friend of ours. Like, I would think because of, things I've done in my past that like, oh, like she's going to look at me in a different way. But like, that's not the case. I've had a one-on-one conversation with her of like, oh, do you think I am this like bad person? And she's like, no, not at all. Like you're absolutely this like sweet and good person. But those words don't really stick in my mind, right? Because of all those like past mistakes, past things that just try to overcrowd it. So I've been through therapy and like we've been able to change the narrative, but now for me it's just like maintaining to understand that, hey, like you got to look at yourself now and who the person who is in front of the mirror right now versus who you were back then. Whenever I do meditations on like being my younger self, like I'm not gonna lie, like I tend to cry because of how much hurt that younger version of myself I feel like has gone through. But without all those things, it wouldn't have made me like the person that I am today.
Yeah.
So that's on that rumination, letting go part. The second part I think was on the content creation journey. I've had conversations about with other content creators about, like it's like the saying, no one gives a fuck about you. And then saying it a different way of like, oh, no one gives a fuck about you.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, which one do you take? And recently with content creation, it's been that like, oh, no one gives a fuck about me. And it's just because of like, oh, like, is this like tips, stuff that I'm saying, podcasts, like even like helping someone? But they were saying like, you may be helping someone that you don't know just because like they didn't comment or they didn't do X, Y, and Z. So it's just like, at the end of the day, it's like your why. And coming back to my why is putting mental health as a priority, as a main topic of conversation. And I think that's why I asked the question. I was like, we ask people like, how are you doing? Usually with my friends, like I try to say, how is your mental health? Because that is really, I think, how you get to the nitty gritty. Because if you say someone's like, how are you doing? It's like, okay, good. Yeah. It's like, well, what does that mean? Right. So sorry, long-winded answer to your question, but yeah, that's where my mental health is at.
It's a perfect answer.
Yeah. Thank you. Other than that,
I have another question actually.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
What are your goals for 2025?
My goals for 2025 is to bring highest version into a bigger brand. So I would say like Instagram followers hopefully get to like 500, subscribers get to 100. We're at 71 right now, so yeah, we're getting close. So that's highest version. Fitness wise, I'm trying to look like Michael B. Jordan. So that's why I'm a coach. Yeah. So that's obviously a very long journey from now, but I've seen a lot of progress and I've been
hard when you're juggling work stuff though.
Yeah.
It's like, I think for me, like being healthy is like the main priority. And then hopefully looks just like are like a bystander, that's kind of the way I view it.
The hardest part for me has been like, because now I'm in my masking phase, obviously because I'm very skinny, so I have to like get to that certain like weight. It's been hard for me to eat, which I know is a first world problem.
It's easy to eat bad food.
Yes, there you go. Thank you.
Eating a lot of healthy food is not just expensive, but it's hard.
Yeah. They don't make eating healthy like any less easier because it's expensive.
No,
especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Freaking stupid.
I know the eggs.
I know, dude. The eggs, the avocado. And then the other thing is just like fashion wise, like I've been stuck in my college, just like outfits. Yeah. So I really want to like research new brands, bring in new types of things. Like I've never worn like baggy pants before. Before I used to be like wearing skinny jeans, bro. It was so bad that like even my birthday party, like I was like, the birthday party theme was like Randy era. So like you would dress up as Randy or whatever. I literally had 5 outfits that people could like go off of because it was so crazy. Predictable. And I'm like, I need to change this. I was like, this is done now. So I'm trying to do that. So I think those are my main goals for 2025. Yeah. And we brought up like culture and Lao. Like I really want to be able to increase my knowledge of it. Yeah. And I'm not going to say be a master by the end of this year. Yeah. But just be a little bit better there. Sure. Yeah. So Mickey, we're going to get into the kind of like TV show host kind of section. Sure. I view this as like a very fun section. Let's do it. So we have one question from the audience. And that question is, so you mentioned that you grew up Georgia, born and raised. This person asks, what was it like being a minority in the South?
What was it like being a minority in the South? It's different for sure. Where I came from, though, also just where I grew up in like Duluth, Lawrenceville, Swanee, Georgia. Those are all towns. They all border each other, like 5 minutes away. But it was very populated with Koreans.
Oh, okay.
Duluth is like I want to say like top 5 most populated Korean town.
Oh, really?
In the United States. I don't know why that's the case, but it was. But being a minority in Georgia, I'd say it's similar to being a minority anywhere else, you know? Like you stand out, you want to fit in, but I think the other people that are like standing out a little bit more are just different. Whether if it was like Georgia or like Massachusetts, for example, like a lot more people drove like pickup trucks and like they wore more like camoed clothes, you know, or like they love to hunt in their free time.
Yeah.
Especially like when hunting season came around.
Yeah.
No, it's just different.
Yeah,
you know?
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what it was like. I'd say it's like if we were to drill down to like some of the struggles, I think like at the core they're all very similar.
The thing that I forgot to ask, like, just that, what has been the biggest, like, I guess, trend that difference between culture in Georgia versus like culture up here? Because obviously, like, the North and South, like, it's just different cultures, like, and everybody knows that.
I think what's stuck out to me the most and shaped me the most is probably my music taste. I think just listening more to hip hop, and especially with a lot of hip hop artists being based out of Georgia or just Atlanta. For example, like the Migos. The Migos actually grew up like down the street from like where I grew up. So it's always cool to just be able to be in touch. I think they went to Norcross, which is the same county that within the same school system, like our high school used to play their high school.
Gotcha.
Type of thing. So that was always cool. Like a real popular comedian nowadays called Drewski.
Oh,
I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
But he's also from Gwinnett County.
Okay.
And just like a lot of like known people in the hip hop game
Gotcha.
have come out of there, and it's really shaped my cultural lens when it comes to music.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, Atlanta has such a big like hip hop culture and music culture there, and it's super dope. Like one of my friends said that if they could choose a place to kind of like live for a couple months, like he chose Atlanta because he's like, I want to see like how the like just being in that culture and like immersing yourself in that music and stuff like that. What's actually funny is that my friend, actually I was there too, but Drewski went to UMass Amherst because he was facilitating. He was the MC for a talent show.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And like I was like, who is this guy? But he was like super funny. And my friend was like literally like maybe the distance from me to you for him. Because she was like just dancing on stage as like like they just like, oh, like who has talent in the audience, and like, you know, she went up and it was really cool. And he had a super funny ass reaction because there was this kid that like he didn't expect them to just be like rapping and dancing, like he just didn't look like it, and then like he just like fell to the floor. So quick tidbit on Drewski there.
Drewski's awesome. I've heard I actually met a person at the gym. She like worked the front desk at the gym I used to go to, and she used to go to high school with Drewski.
Oh, really?
But now she's doing like dentistry over at Tufts.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
But she said that when Drewski was younger, he was exactly the same. So it's funny how like people's personalities just never change.
That's awesome. Yeah, because you think with all that fame, like it does something to them. But I'm glad Drewski's the same. He just seems like a genuinely good guy.
I completely agree.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into song association. This is a game I like to play. It's funny enough, you brought up about music. If the viewers are not so familiar, if you're not familiar, basically I give you a word, you give me a song title or song lyric. People have been giving me song meanings based off the word I give them. And I would like if you could sing it, but if you don't have to, if you don't want to, that's totally fine.
Sure.
So the word I have for you is way, W-A-Y.
Okay. W-A-Y. You know, Randy, I don't have a song for you when it comes to way.
Okay.
Like, are you hoping I can use that in a song title or just like lyrics?
Yeah, lyric too. Like if you want to do that, you could do that too. You could do it on the title.
Yeah, what I will say on this topic of music and just like lyrics, if we're okay with this,
Yeah.
one of my favorite artists is Drake.
Okay.
And one of my favorite like lines or bars from Drake is, "I like when money makes a difference, but don't make you different." It's in a song called "From Time," with Gene Aoki.
Yeah. Yes. Is that one of his older
Yeah,
albums?
it was like, I think it was "Nothing Was the Same."
I think it was the same. Oh. Can you give me the?
It's
Do you know the picture of the album
picture is like the blue sky, and I think it's like
yes, in
his
his
side
face.
profile.
Okay, yeah. Okay, didn't need to go past that. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Let me give you a word with that I know a Drake lyric is in it, or sorry, a lyric that Drake has. Man, there's a lot of.
This is actually harder than I expected.
Yeah. No, everyone says that. And when you promise you, when you give me a word, I'm probably be struggling too. I'm gonna say, what's it called? Over.
Over. Oh man. I don't know, man. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking of his older song. He's like, and it's over, and it's far from over.
Oh man, I do know that one.
Yeah.
That is a banger.
I was also gonna give you Forever. Wait, no. Was it Forever? No.
Forever is one of his songs with Kanye.
Yeah.
All right, let me give you a word. How about that?
Yes.
Mic. Like microphone.
Microphone. The first thing that came to my mind, without a doubt, was BTS's Mic Drop.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm terrible at Korean because I'm not gonna say it right. But it's just like easy, like mic drop, and that's just the chorus. So
there you go.
I'm honestly surprised I actually got that one because that was only the first one that came to mind. But
yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Way to think on your feet.
Well, I mean, I do play this like, every 2-3 weeks because I'm a guest. So, maybe I just have some practice. But no, thank you for doing that. Like, I hope that was a little fun, just like diving into a little bit of music culture. Before we get into the big 3 questions, I just want to say, thank you for coming on. Before this, I feel like we knew of each other, maybe like conversations in here and there.
Yeah.
But I really got to really know like your mindset and who you are as a person. And I think it's just amazing that's how you carry yourself, how you really build yourself into a high performer. And being a high performer myself, I think it's really admirable and great to see like how you kind of really put that also out into the world. And I'm pretty sure a lot of our viewers are going to learn how to put themselves out there, how to really just function as a high performer, but in a very healthy state of mind.
Yeah.
Too. So
I appreciate that.
Time. Thank you for coming on.
No, it was amazing, Randy. And thank you for having me. It was great understanding a little bit more about you and having the conversation here today.
Awesome. All right, Mickey, let's get into the big 3 questions.
Let's
These
do
are
it.
3 questions that I think will leave our viewers with just like your last like few messages. So the first question I have for you is, if you could sit down with a younger version of yourself, what would you say to a younger Mickey? It could be advice, could be just a conversation, could be anything.
Everything's going to work out. That's what I would say.
Why that one specifically?
Yeah, because I think we stress a lot about just like if things are going to work out, like what our future holds, and it builds up a lot of anxiety just thinking about the future, and then just worrying about maybe not being able to enjoy yourself in the present, or maybe like, oh, you skipped that one like vacation or that hangout just because maybe you want to like focus on like your studies, for example, or maybe save whatever money from that vacation. Rather, I would actually tell my past self, like, go and do that, like go f up your life, go learn and go experience new things, because at the end of the day, it does work out. You only got one life to live.
True. In the words of Drake, YOLO.
Yeah.
My second question for you is, what does becoming the highest version of yourself mean to you, and how are you doing that today?
Yeah, I think the highest version to me, what that means is prioritizing your health. You can only do so much. And when you're unhealthy and sick, you can't do anything anymore. I read a book. I actually forget what it's called, but it's like something fade away. Pretty much it's about this TV executive and all of his successes and all the sacrifices he made. And then eventually he wanted to write this like memoir and book to his daughters because he ended up getting stomach cancer. After he got stomach cancer, it came back, and then he got it in his lungs. So they had to open up his back. And then after they took that out, he ended up like getting cancer again, and it spread it, and he ended up passing away. Basically, his moral of the story is that be appreciative of everything you have, like while you're healthy, and give it your best shot, because if you don't, then you'll have regret. So that's like what being the highest version of me means. Because I know my future self, like when I'm on my deathbed and super old, I'm going to reflect on my life. And if I didn't give it everything I had at the time, I know I would regret that. And like, I just need to owe myself that at the very least.
For sure. Yeah. I'm in that same mindset too. Like, you know, growing up, never was a risk taker, was scared to like do things, but now it's just like, just do it.
Yeah.
And you'll figure out your answer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my last question to you is, if you could connect me with someone that you think would be great for this podcast, who would it be and why?
Yeah. I would want to connect you with my roommate, Brian. I think he brings a lot of different perspectives. You know, him being new to Boston, I think he works in a completely different industry as well, being a radiologist over at Boston Medical Center. I think with that being said, also, he actually born and raised in Canada, in Toronto. He he went to school out in Buffalo, New York, and then he also lived in LA for a little bit.
Oh, wow.
So he's only been in Boston for less than a year still.
Wow.
So I think he brings some great fresh perspective to the table.
Awesome. Yeah, let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mickey. I appreciate you for everything, all the stories, all the messages that you've been able to bring up today. So yeah, guys, if you liked any part of this episode, please like, share, comment, subscribe, clip your favorite section, tag me and Mickey in it. And as always, let's fall in love with the process of getting better every day and becoming the highest version of ourselves. Love y'all.